Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Clive, for giving me this opportunity to deliver the opening remarks on this, the final day of what has clearly been a very informative event. Unfortunately, due to diary commitments, I can't be with you in person, but I very much welcome the focus of this summit, which I believe has particular relevance for those who come into contact with the justice system. Over the past 2 days, you will have heard much in relation to the many types of trauma people may experience during the course of their lives. Trauma can affect any one of us at any stage of our individual life journey. For my part, ensuring all those within the justice family are adopting a trauma-informed approach is a key initiative in support of delivering improved outcomes for everyone engaging with the justice system, whether they're victims, witnesses, offenders, or our staff. My vision is that the Department of Justice and its agencies should strive to become trauma-informed organisations through culture, policy and practice. In effect, this would be the golden thread running through each organisation. In recognition of this position, my department has ensured that a trauma-informed approach has been endorsed by the departmental board and referenced as a priority within our business plan for 2021-22. In addition, a trauma-informed practice subgroup has been established, the remit of which will be to ensure that a trauma-informed approach is further embedded across the justice system. We know that the legacy of the Troubles in Northern Ireland has resulted in an increase in the number of people living here with poor mental health as a result of trauma, either experienced directly or passed down intergenerationally. This has undoubtedly had an impact not just in the lives of individuals and families, but on our society as a whole. Continuing paramilitary activity is another example of the legacy of the Troubles. The cross-executive Tackling Paramilitarism, Criminality, Organised Crime programme has been actively investing in a trauma-informed practice and exploring how to embed that approach. The programme supports the Safeguarding Board for Northern Ireland by funding it to deliver training to organisations on trauma-informed practice when working with people who are deemed as vulnerable or at risk. A trauma-informed approach is key to tackling the deep-rooted and pervasive ways that someone can be impacted by paramilitarism and allows us to deliver better support to those who need it. As Minister of Justice, I am all too aware of the impact of trauma on the victims and witnesses of crime, and of the responsibility my department has to ensure that, in delivering the processes involved in bringing people to justice, the impact of trauma experienced by victims and witnesses is minimised to the best of our ability. Critical to this is ensuring that the needs of victims are reflected in services provided, and that as far as possible a trauma-informed approach is adopted. This is particularly relevant in addressing domestic and sexual abuse, which is why I'm committed to progressing a wide range of initiatives across the justice system to ensure a better outcome for victims of abusive and violent crimes. These initiatives are being advanced through a number of pieces of primary legislation, which have either been introduced to the Assembly or which I hope to introduce shortly, and through the implementation of the recommendations in the Gillen and hate crime reviews. In relation to the Gillen Review, I'm pleased to report that among the progress which has been made in terms of improving outcomes for those who have been victims of serious sexual offences, a number of key recommendations have already been implemented. We have established 2 remote evidence centres, allowing victims to give their evidence away from the courtroom, removing any chance of encountering the accused in the court building. Plans are already underway to increase and enhance these facilities. Trauma-informed training for legal representatives and criminal justice agencies has been developed and rolled out. The aim of the training is to increase awareness and sensitivity of handling serious sexual offence cases, especially when dealing directly with victims. Case progression officers have been introduced to ensure that, as far as possible, any delays to effective case progression are addressed. And I have introduced the Criminal Justice Committal Reform Bill to the Assembly, which, when implemented, will see a number of serious sexual offences bypass the traditional committal process, therefore reducing delay within the court system and ensuring that victims and witnesses are not required to give evidence more than once. In order to give victims a voice, I am currently consulting on a victims strategy and a new Victims Commissioner for Northern Ireland, and I also intend to introduce a new advocacy support service in the autumn. which will provide information and support to those affected by domestic and sexual abuse. As well as its responsibility to victims, my department, working with the Department of Health, also has a responsibility to ensure that the physical and mental health needs of offenders within the care of the justice system are met. During yesterday's session, you heard about adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, which have been proven to have long-term consequences for a person's physical and mental well-being. It will therefore come as no surprise to hear that young people and adults who have offended have a disproportionate amount of childhood and adolescent trauma in their backgrounds when compared to the general population. Research has shown that those with 4 or more adverse childhood experiences are 20 times more likely to end up in prison than those with 1. This clearly points towards trauma in childhood being a significant factor in later offending behaviour. My department's recent engagement with women and girls in contact with the justice system has underlined the prevalence of trauma and the caustic impact it can have on individuals and future generations. In order to break the cycle of transgenerational and intergenerational trauma, it's vital that we take action now. The Safeguarding Board for Northern Ireland first took the decision to adopt a trauma-informed approach to safeguarding practice in 2017. Justice agencies came on board the following year in support of the Trauma-Informed Practice Project, an initiative funded by the Cross-Departmental Early Intervention Transformation Programme. That project seeks to enable those working in the justice system to recognise and to respond appropriately to the trauma that an individual has experienced during childhood as a result of one or more adverse childhood experiences, and to create the best possible environment to mitigate re-traumatisation. Since 2018, the justice sector has proactively engaged in becoming trauma-informed, and I'm pleased to report that much progress has been made in this area. Senior staff from all the justice organisations have participated in the Safeguarding Board's Be the Change Leadership Programme. Furthermore, staff at all levels who work with those who may be affected by trauma or adversity have received trauma-informed practice and ACE awareness training. However, being trauma-informed is about much more than delivering training. We need to consider the approach in every area, including the engagement of staff, clients, policy development, and business processes. To this end, I want to briefly share with you some of the key initiatives undertaken by some of our justice agencies. The PSNI can often be the first responder for those suffering from a mental health crisis, and while they are not health professionals, it is important that officers have the necessary training in order to ensure they are equipped to deal with those in crisis sensitively and in a manner that will not cause further trauma. The organisation has made significant developments in this area in the past 3 years, including co-designing a bespoke police sector-based ACE awareness training programme for officers. An evaluation of the programme highlighted its success in increasing officers' abilities to manage behaviours and emotions that present to them, allowing them to interact with vulnerable individuals in a way that enables them to respond appropriately to that individual's needs. With a view to ensuring an appropriate physical environment for those suffering from trauma, the PSNI has also reviewed the provision of care within its Waterside Custody Suite, which now has 4 vulnerability cells with discrete, separate booking-in facilities. Opportunities to include a separate children and young person cell block and autism-friendly designs are also now being scoped out. A significant number of children who come into contact with the Youth Justice Agency have also experienced multiple ACEs, and for many of them, this trauma has contributed to their offending behaviour. The agency's new model of practice, which was launched last month, promotes a children-first approach, which ensures the rights of children are addressed and that children are treated as such. This doesn't mean that their offending behaviour is not addressed, but that it is done so through a holistic understanding of the child's life and by responding in an evidence-based, progressive and principled way. Trauma-informed practice is one of the linchpins of this approach. For those children with complex needs who have experienced serious and multiple trauma, the Youth Justice Agency is developing an enhanced case management model. The new model will deal with children involved in serious or persistent offending through a trauma recovery model and a children first lens. Of course, staff working within our adult prisons also have regular contact with those suffering as a result of childhood trauma. Research from a sample of prisoners in Wales revealed approximately 1 in 8 offenders reporting at least one adverse childhood experience, and nearly half reporting 4 or more adverse childhood experiences. While similar data isn't available for Northern Ireland, the latest information we have indicates that 34% of the current prison population has a mental health issue and 56% have a history of a suicide attempt and/or self-harming behaviours. Northern Ireland Prison Service strengthening family relations strategy in recognising that parental incarceration is known to be an adverse childhood experience committed the organisation to being trauma informed through culture, policy and practice. Key initiatives which have been introduced to reduce the impact of trauma on those in prisons include child-friendly visiting areas, electronic capturing of information to prevent repeated questioning, and an upgrade in the vehicles which transport prisoners from court to prison. The use of improved lighting and the provision of information on what they can expect when they arrive at the prison is all aimed at reducing trauma. Furthermore, prior to the opening of the Davis House accommodation block at Maghaberry Prison, a trauma-informed design was applied to improve staff well-being and to support those within the care of NIPS. And for any of you who have seen the block at Davis House, I think you will appreciate that is a remarkable piece of architecture designed around the needs of the prison population and around the needs of our staff, and is in complete contrast, I think, with previous prison accommodation. Research is also an important component in understanding the causes and impact of trauma. The Probation Board works in partnership with local and international academics to publish high-quality research, which will then influence best practice. Probation Board recently hosted 2 PhD students on 3-year placements, whose research focus was on gender-based violence, adverse childhood experiences, and mental health. Finally, and certainly not least, within the justice system, we have a duty of care towards our staff, whether they work in prisons, in policing, youth justice, or probation, or within our courts. They can all, on occasions, be faced with challenging and grueling situations in the course of their roles. They require our full support in recognising that what they experience and witness, directly or indirectly, can have a lasting psychological impact. Support and advice is available to all Northern Ireland civil service staff through the Welfare Support Service, and where it is required, confidential counselling sessions are also provided. In addition, Northern Ireland Prison Service is progressing the implementation of recommendations arising from a recent review of support services to prison officers, one of which includes the development of a mental health and wellbeing framework. For PSNI officers, who again are frontline staff, an online self-help resource portal has been developed to support their emotional health and well-being, and where possible to mitigate the impacts of vicarious trauma. This is further enhanced by resilience training for officers, as well as a peer support scheme for access by those after a traumatic incident. There is no doubt in my mind that adopting a trauma-informed approach right across the justice system is the only way forward. Ensuring that this approach is truly embedded in everything we do and in every service we provide is critical. Delivering a fully systemic approach to trauma-informed practice will require continuity and consistency across a range of sectors, and I look forward to cross-departmental collaboration in future in order to ensure that this issue remains a priority. I'm delighted that the impact of trauma is being given the recognition and platform for discussion that it justifiably deserves through this 3-day summit. And I'm only sorry that my commitments as Minister prevent me from being able to participate more fully. I want to wish you all a very successful, informative and interactive final day, and thank you again very much for the opportunity to address you today. Thank you.